Hey, what's going on guys? Stickman here, and today we're going to be talking about, that's right, some more Sonic Dream Team. I know, I've made like so many videos about it at this point, but I'm honestly really enjoying the game. So today, we're going to be tackling the biggest question that's been on everyone's mind ever since the game was announced and then subsequently released on December 5th, 2023, exclusively on Apple Arcade, of course. And that question is, will Sonic Dream Team ever be released on consoles and PC? This is going to be an interesting video because while we don't really have any concrete proof that it will or won't, I found a lot of interesting stuff when researching that I think you guys will want to hear. So let's just jump into it. But first, let's talk about what Apple Arcade actually is. Apple Arcade is Apple's premium video game subscription service that launched on September 19, 2019. Think of it like the Xbox Game Pass of mobile games for Apple devices. The main gimmick of it, or what separates it from the regular App Store, is that apps released on Apple Arcade don't have any ads or in-app purchases, which is its major selling point alongside the fact that they can be played on all Apple devices. The main reason that I bring this up is because I think that Apple clearly wants to try and separate Apple Arcade games from regular App Store games by targeting more of a console audience by creating bigger and more fleshed out experiences that don't have ads or a ton of microtransactions. And I personally think they'll be pretty successful at it because paying for a relatively cheap monthly subscription service, that's still going to be a whole lot more accessible than buying a whole new console for a lot of people. Heck, there was even an article published by Tweaktown on November 10th of 2022 showing off this chart where Apple Arcade's subscription sales dwarf basically every other gaming subscription service. I don't know if this is accurate, and I don't know if the numbers have changed since then, but I did see a lot of other articles come out with similar statistics, so I don't know, man, it seems pretty popular. And that's the kind of market that I feel like Sonic Dream Team is tapping into, but we'll get into more of that after we take a look at these tweets. So let's talk about these tweets from Sonic Stadium, a news source for all things Sonic, and Sonic Wind Blue, a Sega Hardlight brand ambassador. And of course, if you didn't know, Sega Hardlight are the developers behind a lot of the mobile Sonic games like Sonic Dash, Sonic Forces Speed Battle, and Sonic Dream Team. Sonic Stadium tweets, breaking, we've heard from a source involved in the game's production that Sonic Dream Team is likely to remain Apple Arcade exclusive. This is because Apple is involved in the game's production. They then link to an article right here. It goes into a little bit more detail. They say that Sonic Stadium was able to confirm this via a source involved in the game's production that has asked us to keep them anonymous. But we were also able to confirm that they are indeed involved in the game's production. While Apple Arcade exclusives have gone multi-platform in the past, our source told us that this would be unlikely for Dream Team due to the nature of the game's production. Specifically, Apple was involved in the game's production. Our source was not able to confirm anything beyond this, but this almost certainly means Apple has some sort of financial investment in the game at the very least. So they basically said that their source, who we're not sure if they're a developer or a creative director or maybe even a higher up, but they're involved in the game's production somehow. They don't think that it's going to be coming to other platforms because Apple specifically funded this game. They went out of their way to fund the existence of this game. And it does make a lot of sense. It even aligns with something I read in a Game Rant article the other day where they said Sonic Dream Team's situation is especially hard to predict due to the important fact that it isn't just any game, but a Sonic game. Apple most likely went out of its way to help fund Dream Team because Sonic is a prominent icon in gaming that will easily bring users to its service, so keeping the game around will be a great asset in the long run. But just so people don't say I'm taking this out of context, they did also provide a counterpoint right afterwards. They said, Sega is also likely aware of how many potential players would like other ways to play Sonic Dream Team, which means they likely won't turn down the chance to sell the game for more direct profits, which, you know, that is kind of true. And to add to this, Sonic Wind Blue quote tweeted Sonic Stadium's tweets, which it's important to keep in mind that this was deleted later on. But he said, the Apple Arcade release only prevents the release on other mobile platforms, example Android, due to exclusivity agreements. This does not mean that the game can't get a release on console or PC. The news is not correct, by the way, which, to his credit, does align with something stated in the Game Rant article where they say roughly 15 Apple Arcade exclusives have moved to console and PC after their exclusivity ended. But there seems to be one permanent clause in the arrangement between developers and Apple. When it comes to Apple's competition with its arcade service, it appears the company is more focused on dominating mobile gaming, as no previous Apple Arcade exclusives have managed to make it onto Android devices. But the biggest issue with Sonic Wind Blue's tweet is that he deleted it, so we're not sure if it's inaccurate or if Sega just told him not to tweet that out yet. Before Sonic Dream Team came out, there was also an interview with Dan Rosati, the studio creative director at Sega Hardlight. An important question that was asked in the interview that I'm going to focus on is what led to Sonic Dream Team being an Apple Arcade exclusive rather than on all consoles and PC. He says, when Apple Arcade launched, we were delighted it brought about the conversation of getting a true 3D Sonic platformer into the lineup. Having worked with Apple and the Apple Arcade platform previously for Sonic Dash Plus and Sonic Racing, we knew that Sonic Dream Team would be a great fit for our next game on iOS. We can't wait to see fans, both new and old, hop into Dream Team and the franchise as a whole. And the first part of the response is probably the most important part, because he's basically saying, yeah, you know, we've worked with Apple Arcade before, it was nice porting Sonic Dash there, and we got Sonic Racing, but we always knew we wanted a true 3D platformer specifically for that platform. Intent is key, and here's what I mean by that. Based on what the article is saying, it doesn't seem like Sonic Dream Team was developed for consoles and PC first, and then when an Apple Arcade exclusivity deal came along, they said, alright, we'll have it exclusive to Apple Arcade first, and then maybe we'll think about having it ported over to console and PC. No, this seems like from the get-go, this was designed and intentionally meant to release exclusively on Apple Arcade, which is also supported by the fact that it seems like this game is heavily funded by Apple. I want you all to keep that in mind as we talk about exclusivity for other Apple Arcade titles. One Apple Arcade app that managed to break free of the exclusivity was Shantae and the Seven Sirens. Part 1 was released on September 19, 2019 for iPhones. Later that year, it came out on other platforms that are Apple specific. Then Part 2 came out March 28, 2020, which was like 6 months after the game launched. And then the full game itself was released on consoles eventually on May 28 of 2020, making it around less than a year before it got ported to all platforms, except for PS5, I guess. But there is a major difference between Sonic Dream Team and Shantae and the Seven Sirens. One of those games has a blue hedgehog in it. Nah, but in all seriousness, the news page for the WayForward devs website actually shows that the game was confirmed to be coming to all platforms way before the game even came out. Very different to Sonic Dream Team, where we still have no word of the game coming to other platforms a month after launch. Next, we got Exit the Gungeon. It was Apple Arcade exclusive up until March 17, 2020, or about 6 months after launch, when it came to macOS, Windows, and Switch, and then later on PS4 and Xbox One on November 13. But once again, the developers behind the game, Dodge Roll Games, actually announced well before the game came out that it would be coming to other platforms in a really lengthy Reddit post, and man, the communication here is so good. I kind of wish we got this type of communication more often with Sonic, but oh well, that's besides the point. The point is, they've always been super clear on the fact that this is going to launch on Apple Arcade first, but other platforms later. But there is one interesting line in the Reddit post. They say the fact is that Apple helped us make a new Gungeon game much faster and with lower stress than we could have otherwise. So that also tells you that Apple was involved in the production of that game as well. And that game came to other platforms, so who knows? Maybe it is possible for Sonic still. Now here's a really interesting case. We've got Choo Choo Rocket Universe. This one was actually developed by Sega Hardlight and published by Sega. So it's a lot closer to home. It released on September 19, 2019, so when Apple Arcade came out, and it was discontinued in September of 2022. The popular theory is that because this game was taken down at around the same time a lot of other apps were taken down, 3 years down the line, people assumed that there was a 3-year exclusivity deal and it just ended. And my guess is because it just wasn't popular enough to get ported to other platforms, it just pretty much vanished. And the reason I bring this one up is because, well, it's made by the same developer, has the same publisher, and once that 3-year exclusivity cycle ended, they just wiped it from the face of the earth. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Sonic Dream Team, but that technically does mean that that could be a possibility. It would be so sad if the game was just stuck on Apple Arcade for 3 years and then delisted, but don't worry, there is a little bit of hope because of Sonic Racing, released on September 19 of 2019 as the mobile version of Team Sonic Racing, and that has still yet to be pulled or discontinued yet. My guess is because the 3-year exclusivity probably got renewed, and the reason for that is probably because, well, Sonic is just a much larger franchise than Choo Choo Rocket, and so they probably had a lot of players and they were like, alright, let's just keep this on the platform for a while. There are still plenty of games leaving Apple Arcade as of January 2024, and when I looked into their release dates, yeah, it does seem to line up. A lot of them did come out almost 3 years ago now, and so it does lead me to believe that Apple Arcade has a 3-year exclusivity at least with a lot of these developers. Could be a little less, could be a little more, but in conclusion, I personally think, and I could be very wrong here, I think that Sonic Dream Team is likely going to stay an Apple Arcade exclusive for at least the next 3 years. And once that exclusivity ends, it's only going to go to other platforms that aren't Android. I really hope I'm wrong and that this video ages terribly, but based on what I've been seeing, that's sort of the conclusion I've been led to come to. But I think there is still hope. I think if a lot of us make our voices heard and constantly talk about how badly we want to play Sonic Dream Team on Steam, on consoles, and just make our voices heard on social media, respectfully please, no death threats, talk to anyone on social media kindly, they are people too, then hopefully there is a chance that we'll be able to play the game a lot earlier on all platforms. Thank you for watching this video, and a huge shout out to Sonic Heroes 54 and Azora for supporting the channel directly. If you'd like to become a channel member, be sure to hit that join button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.